Hey! What are you doing?
Waiting.
Waiting for what?
You'll see.
Okay, Mr. Mysterious Asshole, be that way. I'm just gonna go over here and see what's it? What's that?
It has begun.
I can't be here right now. Why is the fucking door locked?
Because you're coming with
No,
me.
no, I can't be here. I'm not supposed to be here.
Care to wet your whistle? Brought to us by Awe Interactive comes yet another example of Hemingway getting to go fuck himself. Oh, look at me, I'm a widely celebrated American writer and I famously said the first draft is always shit. Well, eat said shit in hell, former American treasure, because you can slap this motherfucker right up there with Project Warlock on knocking it out of the park on the first goddamn go. Pull out your dicks and tits, because foreplay is for people who don't work for a living. You are Valkyrie, traversing the multiple realms to put Norse boot to Norse ass with all the fury an electric guitar can muster. What's that? Ragnarok already happened and all them gods is dead and shit? Well, when them Norns was foretelling the fate of the gods and men all smug and shit, they forgot about two wild motherfuckers named Smith and goddamn Wesson. The end of the Age of Gods plays out a whole hell of a lot different when Thorth shows up with a goddamn M240, hard to succumb to sneaky snack venom when that belt is feeding armor-piercing incendiary rounds. That was Nidhogg. He lives under Yggdrasil and sometimes in Helheim. Jormungandr was the serpent Thor fights. You can't correct my jokes if they're inaccurate on purpose! That's right, shit's going down and you and your surly gang of whoever you elect to play as delve the depths of what the fuck ever you want to call it and spray hot lead justice against spooters and scorpions and bats. Okay, so the most common mobs are a little questionable, but don't you worry your ugly little mug, cause you're going to start wishing for them right quick when you start having to deal with knights and fucking witches. It's a rhythm-based roguelite boomer shooter, and if you think that's a blending of genres that gets a little too swingers club, I'm going to just outright tell you it fucking works. I don't know what experience these guys had before the release of BPM, but they had the skill and passion to make sure they got it right in a manner in which none of the genre's eccentricities get in the way of the others. The roguelike elements focus a lot more around building loadouts and map generation and modifiers being simple so as to pick up on them rather quickly. The rhythm game holds a steady beat throughout the entire game, so you're never blindsided by time signature changes. And the shooty bang bang is simple, and the audio-visual feedback combined with the rhythm elements makes it goddamn satisfying at every level, but it's probably best we break these down in that compartmentalized method my lizard brain uses for every goddamn video I make. Let's start with visuals, as it's the first thing you'll run into. Honestly, the worst I can say is that they're a little unfortunate. They're not bad, but they create a hurdle that you have to get over, and it can take a couple hours to get used to it. I am an absolute monster for monochrome. I have used it before in multiple ways, and it's a very easy and striking way to build intensity. It's also very easy for it to turn a tiny flub up into a much larger issue. Chapter 1 and 3 rely very heavily on red. This is fine as long as you're not prone to seizures or epileptic attack, and if you are, you can actually turn down the saturation and intensity in the settings. The problem comes with the enemies. I harped on Devil May Cry 5 when I streamed it for having enemies the exact same color as the background in a fight where the camera is pulled way the fuck back. Well, in the red stages, enemies are also red and nearly the same shade. Heavy blacks and browns help outline them, but it's visually muddied down to help build that grit, and that makes those small things differentiating them even smaller. The end result is that it takes players a lot longer than it should to get over that boomer shooter hurdle of training your eyes for what you need to look out for, which makes it take even longer to build those reflexes. This isn't necessarily bad, and it's not entirely pervasive. Chapters 3 and 4 use blacks and grays with red and yellow enemies, with Chapter 4 using a lot of whites and blues for the enemies. It's not an issue of being misguided because they knew that they didn't have to use outright god-awful contrasts to make things visible. I think it's more of that issue early games had wherein developers would make games unreasonably difficult because they spent so much time playtesting that they completely forgot how hard their games actually were. I think that might be what ended up happening, especially in Asgard, as even the Crypt, which doesn't feature any contrast for its grays, still looks fine right off the bat. Like I said, it's not bad, just unfortunate because it makes that boomer shooter visual adjustment period a little longer than it otherwise needs to be, and once you get used to it, you really get a sense for its starkness and subtleties, which just opens up even greater levels of appreciation. But for probably the first 3 hours, you're going to spend a lot of time reminded of FPSs of the 09 to 2012 era. That aside, when you can get a good look at enemy designs, most of them are good enough, nothing truly inventive, but unique enough to not be outright boring, and of course, the best aspect of the game's design, Hugin. That's a happy chicken. The music, and yes, I have to tackle it early as it's 1/3 of the game's core, is fucking killer. The tracks are brutal with great intros that get you pumped to start shooting and looting. They've got killer solo work, and each one is an outright banger. Front to back, and it's not a very long journey to the back, the soundtrack has absolutely zero downsides. Walking into a boss room and the song hitting its crescendo and finale is just mwah, chef's kiss fucking perfection. It's not a new song, it's the final drive of that floor's track. So where does the rhythm game come in? Well, on your screen you see a large reticle and little triangles going into it. These are your beats. Large is beat. Small is the halfway point, i.e. the half beat. Walking is a free action, but jumps, dodges, abilities, shooting, and reloading are all actions taken on the beat and the half beat. But Necro! How can it be a boomer shooter if there's no reloading? Well, I'm glad you... That little bastard. Whatever. I'm glad you asked, because weapons that need to reload are an active multi-step action that, just as with shooting, you must time to the beats and half beats. Need to pump a shotgun or pull a rifle bolt? That's also on the various beats. Not only is reloading present, it is worked into the very nature of which you interface with the game. You build your own rhythm of shooting and reloading that when you get a groove, and you have to get a groove, rhythm game after all, you start, or at least I started, making my own portion of the melody entirely naturally, mind you, especially with the revolver, which we'll talk about that bucket of sex in its time. Each action has a drawback, however. You can't fire on the same beat as you dodge, for instance, so the players has to start figuring out how to fire on a half beat, dodge a boss AoE, and then fire again if they want to get good at quick kills. Combined with weak points, and it's not just your setups and skill, but your ability to work those into a rhythm, which sounds like a no duh, and it is. But you clicked on this video, so you've accepted that you're going to hear some Captain Obvious style wisdom from time to time. So the music is pervasive in the design and gameplay aspect, and thus an active part of how you play. But it does have one drawback. Every track has the same time signature and beats per minute. This can make the tracks feel a little samey, but the operative word is can. It's an illusion created by the repetition inherent in the gameplay. Would I have liked to see floors with different time signatures? Maybe. It's easy to say that I would want them when I don't have them. But there is always the possibility that it would have created a rather difficult whiplash that would have made going from floor to floor more of a hassle than it should be. Don't know for sure until someone makes a mod to find out otherwise. What I can say is a disappointment about the music is that nothing is done for it player side when bosses enter the picture. The track picks up, it enters into hero mode, and you're asked to take on something truly fierce. And you have the exact same firing and reloading patterns as you did for the rest of the floor. This was it! This was the time to try something with the tracks. Maybe not change the time signature, maybe give the player a hidden option to fire on the quarter beats, because you can't. There's an item that lets you match reload stages, which is essentially reloading on the quarter beat, but nothing will let you fire on them. Even if it was just a hidden mechanic for the player to experiment and discover, that would have been huge. The fact that the track goes through this huge, noticeable change and yet nothing changes for the player is actually kind of a letdown. I think there was just at least 1 or 2 steps that they could have taken, even if small and secret, that could have really pushed it a bit further, because as it is, your rhythm will never change unless you get the infinite ammo item, or you get a lot of magazine upgrades for weapons with low starting sizes. But it's otherwise absolutely stellar, and its implementation is damn good, except if you're slow like me and the track has a jarringly obvious loop point. Which brings us to the gunplay. It plays like a boomer shooter, it really does. Weapons do exactly what you expect them to do, except for the new ones that are the kinds of types that you haven't really seen in any other game. You just have to active pump and bolt slide. There are plenty of weapons, but you know your bread and butters. Where the game gets interesting is in the submachine guns, energy weapons, and the minigun. SMGs fire bursts, minigun has short spin up before just being constant and not having to worry about rhythm until you reload. They don't reinvent the wheel when it comes to unloading ordnance, they simply change how you go about it in a fresh and very effective manner. There's a lot of guns, it's a roguelike, so when you're quote-unquote done is nebulous, and I'm nowhere close to 100%, so I've not really seen every weapon. I've just kind of played enough and had enough successful runs to know, yeah, I'm ready to ferociously fillet this game on camera. There's a lot, and most function in an entirely unique fashion. Goal's starting pistol has 2-step reload, but it starts with absolutely shit range and damage. One of the first characters you unlock has a pistol that does more damage and range, but has a smaller mag size and 3-step reload. And things only get more trade-off from there. Special note to the phrase, trade-off. There are no power weapons in the game that I've come across. Every weapon has its benefits and drawbacks, save one. There is but one weapon that has 0 drawbacks and is always the right choice. But we'll get to that. No true power weapons that I have seen, and that's with a constantly increasing number of hours since I started writing this script, since I finished the script, and since I started recording. So what I actually wrote down for the hours doesn't matter because it's doubled since then. And a couple hard mode finishes. I could be wrong, but nothing I have seen has convinced me otherwise. Items and builds are really where it's at. Got the minigun? Well, your best bet is to focus down damage upgrades and getting the infinite ammo armor. Got the M1? Well, mag size isn't a problem, so maybe you'll focus harder around stat modifiers. SMG? Boost the fuck out of your damage and get the ring that turns your shot into mini grenades. Having trouble with survivability? Boost damage and regularly seek out health upgrades, of which the game always offers plenty for a price, and seek out libraries to get good abilities. Your character have X starting thing, Y item set, blah blah blah. It's a roguelike, no matter what else, it's got those elements. Some guns may have that one item that when you get them on floor 1 it's an automatic rip run, but there's not a lot of combos that are immediate game winners, and flies will fuck the day of any run, no matter how powerful if you lose your groove. There are no post-damage iframes. You can literally go from 150 health to dead in half a beat if you get too cocky. And that may sound bad, and it was seriously frustrating when it happened to me for like 3 hours straight as I was trying to figure this shit out, but once you do figure it out, you have also figured out how to not find yourself in those situations in the goddamn first place. Want a tip? Avoid challenge rooms. They are absolutely never worth it. The best you can hope for from Wave 1 is a single coin. Wave 2, a single coin and maybe a key. Wave 3, don't know. Never did a Wave 3 that I remember because that is how not worth it they are, and I can't tell you how many times I was insta-killed after activating Wave 1 when it decided 10 flies and spawners was a good idea. The flies are shit design. They're the only thing I can say is truly bad. They're fast, spend a lot of time dodging your attacks, deal 25 damage when they hit you, and take 4 shots until you have a damage rating of Goal's starting gun, plus at least 3 upgrades. For contrast, bats are the exact same, but die in 1 shot, with some dying in 2. Also, they're slower, so their movement isn't very dodge heavy. It's hateful, and unnecessarily so, but other than that, enemies are wildly varied, and the rhythm elements opening up interesting new attack pattern ideas to throw at the player. I think they're called knights, and they're heinous. Gotta hit them from behind, but before you can, they'll fire 4 really fast projectiles at you before they'll become tired and won't turn to block you. They're fast goddamn projectiles, but the beat track on your reticle tells you when to dodge, so the game gives you all the information you need to avoid what's coming, even when some boss attacks are really difficult to see what's happening or predict. It may take you several deaths to understand the nature of what each sign means, but, you know, you can always just look it up. I know, you shouldn't have to, but I'm dumb and don't learn things very quickly, so after the 85th time of successfully dodging Emir's Dr. Octagonopus Blarg and dying from full health, I had to do some research. No bully. Finally, I promised you the one true power weapon, and it's time for the Johnny Dangerously test. Hey guys. I think this is it. I think we are at the end of an era. Not even Doom Eternal truly hit those double barrel heights that Project Warlock did. It got close, but I think Project Warlock might have set the bar too damn high and nobody's been able to get there since. And BPM is kind of the worst yet. Their double barrel shotgun is just, excuse me, downright sad. I'm not editing that or redoing it. Downright sad. Sound effects suck. Damage is marginally okay and the spread is shit. Nothing feels good about it. Fucking bury that bitch. She's dead. But every end is a new beginning. Run that Johnny Dangerously clip.
It's an 88 Magnum. It shoots through schools.
You see that? It's a revolver. The new age has begun. You see, revolvers are difficult in games. Most games just make them a more powerful pistol with a gimmick. But here, it's a power weapon that exemplifies everything this game does and does phenomenally. Great damage, great range, great sound effect and feedback, and you reload one cartridge at a time, which takes that lizard-brained melody making I automatically fall into and drags it to an entirely new level, making my own melodies and changing them naturally as the song gets changed, etc. Dig, if you will, a picture. Fuck your stairs!
It's the final countdown!
It takes a lot to make revolvers feel and sound as good in a game as they do in real life. They're a uniquely sexy weapon in meat space, and the devs took it to an entirely new level with this one. The revolver takes a damn great game with maybe 2 unfortunate design aspects and hoist it into a 20 out of 10 goated title. The revolver in this game isn't just a power weapon, it's not just a sex machine, it's a hand cannon that launches pure, unbridled hate fucking. And you know for a fact they knew what they had, because the character that starts with it has shield health. He's the blue baby of Isaac, the robot of Gungeon, only he can get health upgrades to get normal health, so there's that. The devs knew what they had made, and they knew they had to stress it with its character-based implementation. I can't think of a single game that made a revolver so satisfying and game-changing to use. Just stellar goddamn work. Finally come the roguelike elements. They're not too terribly special overall, but they in no way hinder the game. Item builds are highly important, and how they interact with your gun plays a huge part. Level layout will never be awful since they don't play with verticality issues too much, though there are secrets for platforming, and many rooms will have plenty to spot. Builds don't just come from items, however, as little shrines will litter floors and tossing a coin into their bowl will upgrade the relevant stat. There's a lot of them, so you will never truly find yourself lacking, even if you never hit that item and weapon combo that lets you instantly kill bosses. There are also plenty of rooms and other interactables for beefing yourself out. Damocles altars offer keys, money, and sometimes even health upgrades for taking damage. There are 2 kinds of gambling rooms, shops, etc. The economy is also pretty simple and streamlined. You don't get a hell of a lot of money, but you also don't need a lot. A health upgrade costs 4 coins. Most items in the shop cost 7, health and armor come in lots of 2 and 4. Even the smithy after upgrading sells stat boosts for 5, and an assortment of weapons for 5, 15, and 30. There doesn't appear to be any real tier list for weapons showing up for certain costs, and just appears to mostly be random, as you'll get really good weapons for 5 coins on one run, but it will sit for 30 in another. Again, revolver is the only true power weapon, so the different price points seem to mostly stem from just not making the game too easy by spoiling the player for choice. But there is one issue. It's incredibly easy to become insanely overpowered. I don't know the patterns of half the bosses, because it's so easy to become OP just by taking your time, that by the halfway point I'm killing bosses during their intro animations. But some characters have drawbacks where taking your sweet time actually gets you killed, so as I play more with them and learn them, that will probably start playing a bigger role in having to learn bosses. Make no mistake, this game is very hard, even on easy, but it mostly stems from the learning curve, and you have to get a boss with a pretty chufty modifier for them to be anything other than a footnote. Going from easy to hard really only brought a couple late game enemies into earlier levels, and maybe causes some rooms to spawn more enemies, but overall, it doesn't so far appear to be such a huge leap. Not sure how hellish difficulty is. Daniel-san not ready for that. There are challenge runs, but most that I've unlocked are just difficulty of a level outside of the challenging myself zone. I may come to them somewhere down the line, but I can't really comment on their quality as a result. What I can say, however, is that the old school challenge I will probably never complete. They make it look like OG Doom. By that I mean they completely pixel murder the game and make you super fast. A game that already has trouble with its visuals now becomes damn near impossible to make out where enemies are, and you add in the speed, and it actually makes me migraine and vomit-inducing motion sick, and very few games have even accomplished making me dizzy like that. So I can't really say anything on them, but they are there. And really, I think that's just about it for bullets per minute. I hope I'm not forgetting anything important, because it's an absolutely phenomenal game that, just like a Medieval, I really kind of regret not tackling earlier.
Guess what? I did forget something. I forgot to talk about the accessibility features. I did mention that you can turn down the saturation and intensity of the colors, which is great for people who suffer from issues regarding that. But you'll have noticed in the top right of my screen, and you'll especially have noticed if you're a veteran of the series, that there is no combo counter. This is because that despite the fact that I have spent probably, I don't know, nearly 10 years playing rhythm games, it's been so long that when it did its hey, let's check your rhythm latency thing when you first booted up, it managed to detect 244 millisecond latency on a 4 millisecond monitor. Yeah, I'm so out of practice with rhythm games that the game detected nearly half a goddamn second of latency on my part. So you know, there's that. And it really is an accessibility issue where you can, hey, I have problems keeping up with the pace and the rhythm, so you turn on Combo Assist, which gets rid of the combo meter so you don't get its benefits, but instead sort of averages them out and helps you to not get screwed by firing off beat, which is really great, and I forgot about that when I filmed. Bye.
I simply forgot about it right before it released and had my attention elsewhere for quite a while. It's so damn good that I'm actually kind of embarrassed how little I paid for it. It's only $15, and it's really disgusting how small of a fraction of that I paid. I hammer on plenty of games for only doing enough to justify the price on the proverbial tin, and not much more to build extra value and thus a better relationship with their customers, but in this case, I'm actually the guy who did dirty this time around. I'm sorry. Make a physical release, and I'll be the bitch who pays $70 goddamn for it, especially if it's an old school big box. Look, me sitting here and telling you everything I can think of, even doing a daily episode playing it while breaking down everything as I go, just doesn't do it justice. No amount of watching will ever convey just how good it feels, and you pile everything else on top of it, and this game is definitely up there with Dusk, a Medieval, and Project Warlock for some of the best damn boomer shooters, not just of the indie scene, but on the market entirely. And yes, it is in fact made 10 times better by being Norse mythology themed. Get fucked, Data Boy 2018. This game is damn unforgettable. I'm the TheNecroswanson, and you can go fuck yourselves.